All right, welcome to My Line of Work. Here we dive deep into the world of work, what people do, why they do it, and how they got there. From dream jobs to unexpected paths, every story matters and every career has a story worth sharing. Today, our special guest is Sarah Gentry. Thank you so much for coming and talking with us.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so kind of tell everyone what you do.
All right.
Yeah.
So I am a registered nurse, actually a clinical nurse specialist,
Okay.
and I'm in the Navy. I'm a naval officer as well.
Okay. So which came first?
Technically nursing, but kind of both at the same time.
Okay.
I, while I was in nursing school, I signed on to join the Navy.
Okay.
So I was in my junior year of nursing school when I applied to join the Navy, got accepted. And so as soon as I graduated from nursing school, I got commissioned in the Navy.
Oh, nice.
And so kind of started both.
Yeah. And you were able to do
professions at
that
the same
in
time.
like they already knew, like, this is what you want to do? Or how did that work in the, like, do you get to pick or do they tell you?
So as far as the Navy goes, there's so many different ways that you can join the Navy.
Okay.
My particular path, I did something called the Nurse Candidate Program. And so again, it was while I was in nursing school, I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do. I was living in Indiana at the time and really just couldn't stand the thought of settling down in Indiana the rest of my life.
Yeah.
So I was looking for a way to get out. And of course, the recruiters come to the colleges. And I actually was considering the Air Force at first. And then looked into the Navy as well. And really just thought, oh, I bet the Navy has better duty stations, always near the water.
Yeah.
Here I am in San Antonio. But so looked into it and they have a program. It's called the Nurse Candidate Program.
Okay.
Which is geared towards those students that are in nursing school who will commission upon graduating nursing school. So I was like, Navy, that's a great way to get out of Indiana. So I applied to the program and like I said, got accepted. And so while I was in nursing school, I got a stipend. I think it was an E5 stipend. Yeah. And then because I was technically in the individual ready reserve, which is, I'm not going to try to explain that.
Yeah.
But got a stipend while I was in nursing school. Cool. And then again, like I said, once I graduated, got commissioned, went to, at the time it was called Officer Indoctrination School. Now they call it Officer Development School.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's funny. Funny change of language.
Yeah. So that was 5 weeks in Rhode Island. And then once I graduated from that school, then I moved to San Diego and started my path as a nurse and a naval officer.
Wow. And then is that something you always wanted to do? Is that something out of high school? What turned you towards nursing?
So no, I actually didn't really know what I wanted to do. I spent 6 years getting my undergrad because I couldn't figure out what I wanted to do.
I did 5, so I was almost there.
Yes. I started out as a chemistry major, and then I was like, why am I doing this? My labs never turn out right. I hate doing research. Then from there, I changed my major to therapeutic recreation. And enjoyed that, but it just wasn't quite right for me. And so I, at this point, I was, like I said, a junior in college. And I went home. My grandmother was sick and in the hospital. So I went home over the weekend to visit her. And it was just then when I was visiting her, it just kind of clicked. Like, nursing, that's what I should do. And it was actually, I really kind of feel like it was definitely a God thing because the original due date for the nursing school applications was that Friday before I went home.
Oh, wow.
But for some reason, I don't know why, the application deadline had been extended by 1 week.
Oh, nice.
So I was able to do that 1 week, get my application in, and then, I got accepted to nursing school. So then that was another 3 years after the 3 years I had already done.
Yeah, that's cool. And then, okay, so 6 years. And so now you're in the Navy, you're a nurse. What did that look like starting off?
So yeah, starting off, it was really just learning how to be a nurse. So I started off my career. They have the Navy at most of their bigger duty stations. They have a nurse residency program. And so, spent the first, I don't remember how long it was, 6 or so weeks in that program, just where you had a preceptor you were working with, and really just learning how to be a nurse.
What's a preceptor?
So a preceptor is someone who is already a nurse.
Okay.
And so you're
kind of like a mentor?
Yeah. And you shadow them.
Or like an apprenticeship
Yeah.
type?
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. And so did that. I started off on the hematology oncology floor. So doing 12-hour shifts. We would, and at the time, to keep it fair, we would switch between days and nights. So I would do, it was tough. It was 6 weeks of day shift and 6 weeks of night shift.
Oh, wow.
12-hour shifts. It was hard.
How was getting used to, well, okay. So you had 3 things you had to get used to. You had to get used to 12-hour shifts.
Yes.
Because most people don't work that long.
Yes.
You had to get used to night shifts.
Yes.
Because most people work during the day.
Yes.
And then you had to get used to switching from days to nights.
Yes.
So how was that?
It was tough. I'll be honest with you. If I had to do that now at my age, I don't think that would work. Thankfully, in my 20s and I was young, it was okay, but it was hard. It was hard. 12-hour shifts are hard because we say 12-hour, but they're really more like 13 to 14
you can't
hour
just cut
shifts.
it off.
Yeah, because you got to wait till your replacement gets there. You got to do turnover. If you haven't completed all your charting, you got to make sure all that's done before you go. So,
and in your shifts, was there a lot of sitting, a lot of standing? Was it a mix?
A mix. It definitely depends on the patient load. If they're, if there's a lot of patients, then no, there's not a lot of sitting.
Okay.
It's getting time to go to the bathroom and eat lunch was challenging sometimes.
Oh, nice.
But there were some shifts where we didn't have a lot of patients, and then we had more time. But yeah, it's.
And do you prefer standing more or sitting more?
I prefer the standing more, actually. It does make the day go by faster.
Oh, okay.
But it's also exhausting.
Yeah.
And depending on how sick your patients are, it can also be mentally exhausting.
Oh, okay.
And working in oncology was, I loved it. Absolutely loved oncology.
Yeah.
But it's also a very emotionally draining profession because.
So what is oncology?
Cancer. So working with cancer patients.
Oh, wow.
And so unfortunately there is a lot of death there. And so it can be really difficult as well, but it's the most rewarding area I've worked in.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, I talked to I had a firefighter on, and I was thinking the same thing, the things that they see sometimes, because he surprisingly told me that only about 20% of his job is fighting fires.
Oh, wow.
A lot of it is medical response. And and so he sees, car crashes and so we talked about that same thing. And so I don't want to say not take that home or separate yourself, but how do you kind of manage that?
Yeah, that's a good question. Definitely having people to talk to. I mean, having my coworkers, we're all, we were a very close-knit group.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, so that was really helpful. We could support each other and hang out together. And also, we're at work, it's serious, we have stuff going on, but then we could go out and have fun together too.
Yeah.
And then, just as well, having Mike, my husband, family support is very important. And then just going to church also. And I think my faith also helped me, through those tough times.
That's good. Very cool. Okay, so you're in Indiana. You're trying to get out. You get through college. You're in the Navy. Where did you go from there? Or did you get stationed somewhere else?
So my first duty station was in San Diego.
Oh, nice.
That was good. Like I said, spent 3 years there. In the Navy, we move around a lot. Typically every 3 years you change duty stations.
Okay.
It can vary, but I spent 3 years in San Diego. Like I said, the 2 years of that was on the hematology oncology floor, and then I did a year in pediatrics as well. So
nice.
Inpatient, both of those were inpatient.
Yeah.
And then from there, we went to Iwakuni, Japan.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, that was awesome. That was probably my favorite duty station.
And were you there only 3 years?
That one we ended up spending 4 years.
Oh, okay.
Because, went through a lot of trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my life, and actually considered getting out of the Navy.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, but the Navy has a program. It's called DUINS, Duty Under Instruction. And so, again, it's another program you can apply to. And if you get accepted, then the Navy will pay for you to get your graduate degree.
Oh, nice.
So I was thinking about that. And basically I said, okay, well, I'll apply to DUINS.
Yeah.
If I get accepted, I'll stay in the Navy. If I don't get accepted, I'll get out.
Oh, okay.
But to be able to apply, I had to extend for a year in Iwakuni. So that's why we were there for 4 years.
Cool.
Yeah. So I applied to the program and I got accepted.
Nice.
So, so from Iwakuni, we went back to San Diego.
Okay.
And the Navy paid for me to get my master's in nursing as an adult gerontology clinical nurse specialist.
Gerontology.
Yes.
So what's that? I just know the ology part of it.
Right. Elderly people.
Oh, okay. Oh, so, geriatric.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I've heard that word before.
Yeah. Exactly.
Very cool.
So I went to the University of San Diego. For 2 years, getting my master's to be a clinical nurse specialist.
Yeah. And so what doors did that open?
So then basically in the Navy, you just go from duty station to duty station.
Okay.
So after that, we were able to go overseas again. The Navy sent us to Okinawa, Japan.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So I spent 3 years there.
Okay.
And I started out again in the inpatient setting as in the medical and the multi-service ward. Yeah. So basically any type of medical or surgical patient that got admitted would go to that floor. Yeah. So was there for about a year and a half. And then I moved to the outpatient setting. Yeah. And in Iwakuni, it was an outpatient setting as well. So doing clinic management type stuff. And so same thing in Okinawa. I was doing ambulatory care, clinic management.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Interesting. So you've been to California, you've been to Japan. Where else have you been?
So from Okinawa, they sent us actually here to San Antonio.
Oh, nice.
All of the medical enlisted, not all of, but the majority of the medical enlisted training happens here in San Antonio. So for the Navy, this is where our corpsman school is. So after they go to basic training or boot camp, then they come here to San Antonio to learn how to be a corpsman. Oh, nice. And then we also have all of our advanced schools. So corpsman is their basic school, but then if they want to go on to be like a respiratory therapist or a cardiovascular technician, surgical technician, multiple. We actually have like 20 different schools for those advanced medical fields. So those schools are here. Yeah. And then we also have a few officer programs for like orthodontist, a doctorate in physical therapy.
Wow, you do a lot of things.
Yeah. So those schools are all here. So I came here after Okinawa, where I was an instructor and the department head for the corpsman school. There's the basic, we call it their A school. Yeah. And spent 3 years here. And then after that, We went to Bremerton, Washington, and I spent 3 years there where I was actually in charge of the staff education and training department.
Oh, cool.
So just, making sure all the education and training that all the staff needed to do was provided and taken care of. And then most recently came back here to San Antonio, where I actually oversee all of those schools that I was telling you about.
Oh, nice.
The A school, the advanced schools, which are the C schools, and then the officer programs.
Wow. You got quite a journey.
Yes.
So what does that look like as far as I work in kind of real estate related field. I'm an inspector. What does that look like for housing for you guys? Like, are y'all able to buy homes? Do y'all rent everywhere? What do y'all do?
So yeah, that's and that's very each person specific.
Yeah.
I'll be honest with you, when I was young, really didn't necessarily know a whole lot about buying a house or anything. So in San Diego, the first time we just rented an apartment.
Okay.
And then of course, moving overseas, you just rent a house there.
They pay? Does the government pay or?
Yes. Yeah. Okay. So you get a housing allowance.
Okay.
And then you get a special housing allowance for being overseas as well.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
And do you have to live on base or do you get to choose?
It depends.
Okay.
In Iwakuni, we were able to live off base.
Oh, cool.
So we actually lived in a Japanese house out in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
It was really cool. In Okinawa, there was enough base housing available for my rank, so we had to live on base in Okinawa.
Yeah.
So it just kind of depends on where you are, what the housing availability is.
Yeah. Did you pick up any Japanese?
Very little.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I tried, but I'm not very good with
I have
languages.
a brother who's an engineer, and he went to Germany for work, and he lived there a year and a half. He didn't learn any German, but for him, he would just go to work, come home, and everything was in English. Like that was just like the language of business. Everything was in English. His wife learned German because she was at home and then she would go shopping and she was out and about, so she learned, but he didn't learn any German.
yeah it's true. That's pretty much how it was for us, because I went to work on base every day where everything was in English, but my key was more out in the community more, so he definitely picked up a lot more Japanese than I did.
That's awesome. Yeah. What about, so we talked about housing. What about, I know you mentioned to me one time that your daughter was born in Japan.
Yes.
And so she was born on base? She's a citizen, or how does that work?
Okay. Yeah. So, well, just real quickly to go back to the housing.
Sure.
But we did end up buying as well.
Okay. Yeah. Let's finish that. Go ahead.
Yeah. So we started out renting, but then I just got tired. I'm like, why am I paying everybody else's mortgage?
Yeah.
So we did. We bought our first house in Washington.
Oh, nice.
We were able to sell it when we moved here, and then we bought a house here this time.
Oh, nice. I like that you said that. I told a friend of mine, he's young. He's like in his mid-20s. Married, has a son, a baby boy. And I'm like, when are you going to buy a house? And he's like, I don't know. And I'm like, well, I was like, everyone has a mortgage. I'm like, you're paying this guy's mortgage. I was like, why not pay your own mortgage?
Right.
And he was like, oh, I never thought about that. I'm like, yeah, like you're paying a mortgage. Like everyone's paying a mortgage. You're either paying your own mortgage or someone else's.
Exactly.
And so I'm glad you said that.
Yeah, definitely.
So very cool.
But yeah, so actually both the kids were born in Japan.
Oh, nice.
Yes. And where we were in Iwakuni, there was it was all outpatient on base. Okay. We didn't have inpatient. Okay. That's actually changed since then. But so basically you were given a choice. Okay. Up in Yokosuka, Japan, there's a naval hospital. So when you reached, I think it was like 36 or 37 weeks in your pregnancy, you could either go up to Yokosuka and just kind of hang out up there until you delivered. Okay. Or you could stay in Iwakuni and deliver at the local Japanese hospital. We had a partnership with one of the doctors there. He's worked with the base for years.
Oh, nice.
And so I really didn't have any desire to just go up to Yokosuka and sit around and wait. Yeah. So I stayed in Iwakuni.
Okay.
And yeah, both the kids were delivered in a Japanese hospital.
Yeah.
It was an interesting experience, very different than an American hospital. Unfortunately, I had to have C-sections both times. Yeah. I really wanted to deliver naturally, but it just didn't happen. Yeah. My body just didn't go into labor. Okay. But yeah, it was. They typically, if you have a C-section in Japan, a lot of times they'll keep you in the hospital for like 2 weeks afterwards. Wow. Yeah. Which is not the case in America. Yeah. So I did stay in the hospital for a week. Okay. He kind of would concede to the Americans a bit. Okay. So yeah, I was in the hospital for a week with both of them, but it was a great experience. Oh, really? Yeah, he was this man. It was Dr. Shoji was his name. Okay. And he had to be in his 70s. Wow. Than when the kids were born. Yeah. And he was so calm about everything. I never saw that man look concerned or rushed or anything. That's awesome. Yeah. So it was good. But no, that as far as citizenship, because we're there in the military under the SOFA, the Status of Forces Agreement, they are just U.S. citizens. Oh, okay. Yeah. Oh, interesting. And their birth certificate still, but it does say Japan. So yeah, their birth certificate, it's actually a report of birth abroad. Oh, instead of a birth certificate. Yeah. But yeah, it's so a report of birth abroad, and yeah, it has their birthplace as Iwakuni, Japan. And that document works the same as a birth certificate? Yes. Okay. If they ever had to prove whatever. Yeah. Oh, interesting. Very cool. Do they ever say they're Japanese? So it's funny when they were little, they definitely felt more Japanese than American. Yeah, because they were born in Iwakuni. Yeah. Lived there for my daughter. So she was 3 when we left Japan the first time, and our son was 1. Yeah. And then we were only in the States for 2 years before we went back to Japan. Oh, that's right. Yeah. So the first 7 or so years of their lives, they were really more comfortable with Japan. How was the language for them? It was fine. They learned a little bit of Japanese, but again, we spoke a lot of English just because we're on base a lot. Yeah. And And then they had American friends. Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. And did she go to school over there? So they were both homeschooled. Oh, okay. Yeah. So Mike homeschooled both the kids. Actually, he's still homeschooling our son. Yeah, awesome. And then Raya started school. She started going to an actual school last year. So. Oh, okay. Very cool. Was that a difficult transition for her? Surprisingly, no. Oh, that's good. Yeah, it was pretty easy for her. Yeah. She seems very extrovert. Very yeah, she is. She really wanted to get out and be with people. Yeah, that's good. Yeah. Very cool. Okay, so what you do now, is that a typical career path, kind of from nursing, or do most nurses in the Navy stay nurses? How does that? So the Navy is very big on developing leadership. Okay. So no, it's not really typical to stay in patient care. Okay. However, unless if you become a nurse practitioner or a nurse midwife or a nurse anesthetist, then you'll be more likely to stay in patient care. Yeah. But you pretty much are always also pursuing a leadership path as well. Yeah. So that's good. Yeah. So like I said, in San Diego, my first duty station, I was truly just patient care. I was just really learning how to be a nurse. But already at my second duty station in Iwakuni, I was taking on a leadership role. I ran the family medicine clinic there. So was the department head. Mm-hmm. And then again, then I went to school. And then in Okinawa, again, I was the department head of the inpatient floor. Now we were short staffed, so I also had to work the floor and do patient care. So I was able to keep some of those skills, but balance it with my leadership role. And I think that's a lot of what we do in the Navy as we progress in our careers is you end up doing administration and leadership, but trying to find those areas where you can still do your practice and keep current with your clinical skills as well.
And so do you do any nursing at all still?
Right now, not really. It's a little more difficult here because we're not really attached to a hospital. And so there's not really that opportunity to go and get my clinical sustainment. However, if you wanted to, an opportunity that is available is we call off-duty employment. And so the Navy does allow you to do, I think it's like 16 hours a week where you can moonlight basically. So a lot of people do take advantage of that. I have not, just because I have a full-time job. I want my off time to be with my family. So I don't want to work another job.
And then do you, I don't know if you know or not, but a typical nurse, if I just went to nursing school and I became a nurse, is there opportunity for advancement like there is in the Navy?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. In the civilian side of things, you can, if you wanted to just do patient care your whole career, you could do that. But if you wanted to move into the administration roles, absolutely. There's opportunity for that.
And then you have to go back to school like you did for that, or are there just...
It depends. There's there's so many different paths you can take, but definitely I would say it's definitely preferred for those who are going to be in leadership roles to have a master's or even anymore. They're getting to where they want you to have a doctorate degree.
Oh, wow. Okay. Very cool. What would you say are kind of pros and cons of your career?
So
even simple things like, my wife thinks it's silly, but one of the things that I consider a pro in my career is I have a uniform. And so I don't have to think about what I have to wear, right? When I was a teacher, like I had to I wore this yesterday or now it's just like I wear my shirt, my pants, and my boots, and it's like, I'm ready to go. So to me, that's a pro. Little stuff like that.
Yeah, no, that's true. That's true. It is easier. I mean, of course, in the Navy, we have uniforms, so it does make it easy.
And you buy less clothes because I'm just wearing, I don't change. My wife, as soon as she gets home, she changes. I stay in my work clothes. She hates it. But I don't like to change. Like I in the morning, I get dressed and then I don't change until I'm going to go to bed. And so, I don't have a lot of clothes.
Yeah. I know. And it is a pro, but sometimes it's a con too. Cause I'm like, when I do need to wear regular clothes, I'm like, I don't have anything to wear.
Yeah, that's true.
but yeah, I go to work, I come home and I'm in my uniform and I basically change into my workout clothes. And so I don't dress like this often. And then also scrubs, getting in the medical field, getting to wear scrubs. That's actually a pro.
They're comfortable.
They're comfortable.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But definitely with the military, you can see it as a pro or a con. I think it's maybe a little bit of both, but moving around. We've had that opportunity to go to a lot of different places, meet a lot of different people. We have friends all over the world.
That's cool.
So it's been really great.
Yeah.
But, with that too is moving all the time, which is...
How's the leaving?
It's, it's okay. I think as the kids got older, it got harder.
Okay.
Yeah. And they're starting to actually make those friends that where at more of that age where it matters a little more. But yeah, you leave. But with the military, everybody's coming and going.
Yeah.
So that is a little easier. But then again, places like here when we're in the United States, not everybody's coming and going, as opposed to overseas where pretty much everybody's coming and going. Yeah. But I think one con is, my kids, they've not had the opportunity to grow up near family, which is something I had growing up. Yeah. And, we've gone to visit family, and our family has come to visit us as they're able. But, it's really just been the four of us pretty much the whole time. And so that's, it's something I wish that my kids could have had, family around. Because that was a big part of my childhood. Yeah. But so again, pro and con with moving around a lot. I think definitely with the nursing, being able to help people, when they're at their lowest points, it's really an honor to be able to do that. Yeah. But then at the same time, like I said, very long shifts, exhausting work, can be very draining. Yeah. But definitely worth it. Just can be very exhausting.
Well, I like that. I didn't think about the family one, or you're moving, and like you said, it's nice to travel and see a lot of places, but you're not there a long time, and depending where you go, you're far from family.
Yeah.
How has the Navy, nursing, any of that, how has that changed since kind of you started?
Well, and certainly with nursing and healthcare, things are constantly changing, and I am sure I'm not up to date with all the most current stuff. Yeah. But the Navy, it's trying to kind of figure out how to say it.
Sure. No pressure.
It just seems with the younger people who are joining the Navy do not necessarily have that same toughness and resilience.
Okay.
As some of the older generations have. Yeah. And so trying to balance that. Yeah. It's been interesting to see. And another thing that is interesting, physical fitness has always been a big part of the military. Yeah. But certainly within our country, just in general, people's health is not the greatest. And so we've actually had to decrease some of our standards for physical fitness. Interesting. Otherwise we would not necessarily have.
You'll run out of people. Yeah. Yeah, that's huge. And has that affected kind of how you parent? Because I had the privilege of being a teacher before I became a parent. And so I call it a privilege because I kind of saw the way some students, not all students, right, but the way some students would behave. I'm like, okay, my daughter's just born. Like, I can see into the future, right? Like 5 to 7 years. I taught elementary. And so I'm like, okay, she can't do this. Like, there's things that I won't stand for her to do this because it may lead to this, right? And so I don't know, has that affected your parenting at all?
I'd say probably. Yeah. I think that I don't even want to say strict. I don't think Mike and I are like super strict, but I do think that we are definitely trying to make sure our kids are strong and do have that resilience to handle the difficulties that life throws at them, and also to make sure that they are independent and can navigate the world on their own.
Yeah. So, I was always seen as the fun, not strict teacher. To me, it was important to build relationships with the kids. So at recess, instead of just standing with all the teachers and talking, I'm playing soccer with the kids. Like it's my team against whoever, right? Like, and then we always split up. So they saw me, and then in the classroom, my classroom was always very loud, and so they thought, "Oh, he's not strict. He doesn't have control of his class." Right? I ended up having a conversation with a teacher that I respected. Her name was Miss Sturdivant. She was an amazing teacher. And one year we were put together in the portables, and it was just 2 classrooms. And so it was my classroom, her classroom, and her classroom was always very quiet, very, my classroom, I did a lot of cooperative learning. So it's like you're grouped in desks. Her classroom, you go in and it's in the traditional rows, right? And everyone's separate. And so we had a conversation about that, right? And I was like, I don't think I ended up telling her I do think I'm strict, right? But I have things that are non-negotiables in my classroom. Like these are non-negotiables. My only rules were be respectful, be respectful, be responsible, always do your best. Sorry, it's been a while since I've been in the classroom. Those are my only rules. And anything that a student would do, I would say, hey, you're either not being respectful, you're not being responsible, or you're not doing your best. And that was it. Everything else was like, if you're on task, if you're working, if you're learning, like, I don't care about the noise. I don't care about the movement. Like, just right. So we ended up having a conversation. She's like, well, not every classroom is the same. Not every teacher is the same. Everyone has different teaching styles. And so we came to the agreement that we're both strict. It's just her expectations are different than mine. Right.
Right.
And so I tell parents and teachers that, right? Like being strict means you have an expectation and your students or children will meet those expectations. Now the expectations for everyone is just different, right? Like
right.
And so maybe you are strict, but
right. Yeah. And I think you might be right, because I like what I expect of myself. Like, I don't think that I am special. I think that whatever I am doing, like other people should be able to do. Like I'm not better than them. So yes, I have those expectations of this is, what I expect of myself. I expect of you as well. So I think you're right. And I think I've found that at work as well. Again, I don't really think of myself as strict or intimidating, but I have been told otherwise. But it's just, maybe I have higher expectations than some other people.
That's what it is. Yeah, I think that's the word, is expectations. Because I think traditionally the word strict, people think like you're yelling and you're, don't do this and you can't do that and no fun, right?
Right.
And it's like, no, that's not strict. Strict, that's, to me, that I don't think that's healthy.
Right.
Right? Because on the other side of it, if you're a teacher and you don't raise your voice and you don't have control of your classroom and you can't get the kids to do what you want, like that's also not healthy, right? And so I think the middle is, I don't have to yell at my kids. Right. But I also don't let them do whatever they want, and they can't walk all over me, right? But I can control my classroom. And by control, I mean like create a learning environment, right? Like we're here to learn. And so I'm going to create an environment where no one affects anyone's learning.
Right.
Same thing at home, right? Like we're here to be a family, eat dinner, watch a movie, whatever it is.
Right.
And you can't do things that are going to impede on others' ability to do that.
Right.
So,
absolutely.
So yeah, it's important to have expectations. And so what can young people do to kind of prepare for kind of what you do?
So yeah, if you want to be a nurse, just any experience you can get, volunteering in the healthcare field, or getting those opportunities to one, see if it's really something that you want to do.
Yeah.
And just, of course, always doing your best in school so that you can get more opportunities.
Yeah.
As far as being in the military, it is a commitment. Now, again, you don't have to say it. Like when I first joined, I had no idea that I was going to do 20 plus years in the military. I really thought, oh, I signed on to do 5 years. I'll do my 5 years and who knows what.
Is that the minimum?
No, again, it just depends on how you end up joining.
Okay.
So a lot of it, I think kind of 4 years is the typical of that, you at least sign up for 4 years and then kind of go from there. And then there's a lot of differences between enlisted and officer as well.
Okay.
So yeah, I didn't really know that this was what I was going to stay in this long.
Yeah.
But it's been really good. But definitely, if you are considering the military as a career thing, you just need to make sure, one, that with school you are doing your best, because you get more opportunities. Like I was talking about, the programs that I applied to, GPA, how you're doing in schools, it's definitely things they look at when they decide who they're accepting.
Is there anything, so I know the firefighter that I interviewed mentioned there are things in your past that can disqualify you from being a firefighter. Is there anything in your line of work?
Yes, there are. Not so much with nursing, but the military definitely. Certain health conditions. I couldn't list all of those for you, but yeah, definitely there are certain health conditions that if you have a history of those, you would not be qualified for military service. And then I don't know all of the others. I know, if you've been in legal trouble in the past, depending on what it is, it could potentially be disqualifying, but not, not guaranteed that it will be. So there are definitely things that could disqualify you.
Do you know now kind of what the physical expectation is? Like running a certain mile time?
Yeah. And so I can't give you the specifics on that, but yes, there are. So for the Navy, and each branch is different, so I can really only tell you for the Navy.
Sure.
But we do a physical fitness test once a year. And it's composed of one, weighing in. So based on your height, there's a max weight that you're allowed to be.
Okay.
So you have to pass the weigh in, and then there's the actual physical fitness test, and that is so the typical is a 1.5 mile run, but they do have alternate options for you. You can swim it. Yeah, you can do, they allow us to do the row machine. I think the treadmill and the bicycle.
And those are all a mile and a half? Or does it vary depending on what you pick?
It varies. The swim, I can't remember how long the swim is. I'm not a good swimmer, so I've never swam it.
How old were you when you learned how to swim?
I joined the Navy because I had to pass the swim test. So in my 20s.
Yeah. I was 27.
Yeah.
And it was a friend from church had a pool that we would go to. And I mean, I have kids, so I'm in the shallow end playing with the kids.
Right.
And then he taught me, we went down to this, I told him I didn't know how to swim. He's like, you don't know how to swim? I'm going to teach you how to swim. And I ended up learning that summer with him, but yeah, I didn't know. I was 27.
Yeah. I really still don't know how to swim. With the Navy, you have to pass a swim test. You have to be able to swim, I think it's 50 yards.
So that's your...
But you can do any stroke.
Oh, okay.
So I did the backstroke.
Really?
Yes. I learned how to do the backstroke enough so that I could pass my test. And
That's
there were
awesome.
some other things too, like you have to jump in the water from like a 5-foot tower, and have to do like the dead man float for 2 minutes, or I can't remember all the things.
And you can float on your back?
Ish. I did enough to pass the test.
I can't float. My sister can float on her back. She can't swim, but she can float on her back.
Yeah.
And I'm the opposite. I can't float, but I can swim.
Yeah. Yeah, I am. I had to have tubes. I had chronic ear infections when I was a kid and had to have tubes in my ears. And so I actually wasn't allowed to get water in my ears when I was a kid. So swimming was just never, it always kind of.
Do you put something whenever you do your test?
No, I'm okay now. But I still don't.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, so there's you have to choose one of those cardio options, and with the treadmill and the bike and the rower, I think it's more so like you have to burn a certain number of calories within a certain amount of time to determine your score. And then on top of that, you have a plank. So you have to hold a forearm plank. And again, the amount of time you hold that determines your score. So the longer you hold it, the higher your score will be.
Is there a minimum? Is it the elbow one?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. There is a minimum. I don't know what it is. And then there's also push-ups. And so the more push-ups you do, the higher your score will be. You have 2 minutes to do as many push-ups as you can.
Okay.
As far as the scores, it varies based on your age. So the older, that's the one good thing about getting older is
you don't have to do as much.
You don't have to do as much to get a higher score.
That's funny.
Yeah.
No, that's important. I just turned 40 and my son who's 12, we were playing football yesterday and man, he juked me bad. I was like, dude, he's only 12.
Right.
Yeah, it was really bad.
Yeah. I know. I'm excited actually for our PRT this coming year. I'll be 45.
Oh, nice.
So I get to go up a bracket. So I don't have to do as much.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And so the entry one the hardest? Or what would you say is the hardest one? At what level or what age? Or
Oh, definitely. I mean,
probably like mid-20s.
When you're younger, they have it's like I can't remember the age groups off the top. It goes in 5s, but it starts at like 17.
Oh, okay.
And so like 17 to, I don't know, 20 or whatever it is. Yeah. Like those they definitely expect you to be able to do a lot more at that age. That
makes sense. I mean, you're at your prime.
Yeah.
Very cool. Okay.
But you would be surprised at how many of these young, fresh out of high school young adults cannot pass the PRT.
Yeah. Well, so my oldest daughter, she's 13. She'll be 14 in February. She last year would complain about her knee. She's like, my knee hurts. We're like, that's weird. Well, it was persistent. Like, okay, we'll take you to the doctor. We took her. What they ended up saying was that the muscles around her knee were weak. And so her knee is just overcompensating for weak muscles. And I'm like, this is ridiculous. So I'm taking her to physical therapy and I'm like, what she's doing. She's doing like she's doing squats, she's doing leg presses, she's balancing on this like half ball thing. And I'm like, man, if she just played a sport, like she wouldn't have to do I have 2 boys. They never have any issues because they're always running, jumping, basketball, soccer. And I'm like, man, so we're forcing her to play tennis. Right. Well, we told her, you pick. Well, I wanted her to play soccer. She doesn't want to play soccer. Right. We're forcing her to pick between swimming because she's going into her freshman year of high school. So we're picking her classes. I'm like, okay, you're going to play a sport.
Yeah.
So we narrowed it down to swimming or tennis. And she picked tennis.
Okay.
I was like, why not swimming? Like that one has your knees are never going to hurt.
Right. And it's a great exercise.
And she's a great swimmer. Anyway, she picked tennis. But all that to say that, it's crazy. Like she's not very athletic, which I told her, like, you don't have to, it's not about winning at your age and at your capacity, right? Like I'm like, you're like me now. Like I don't play to win. I play to like I do like to win. I am competitive, but
Right.
more than anything, I play still just because I sprint, I jump, I run, I fall, right? Like it's just healthy.
It is. Like I don't think people realize how important it is for us to continue moving.
Yeah.
Like being physically active. Like you said, you don't have to be athletic, but just being active is so important for our health. You know, as we age and even when we're young, it's huge.
Yeah. Have you played pickleball?
I have. I'm not very good, but I have.
It's fun. My wife got me into that last year. It's fun.
Yeah.
I'm not very good. Okay, I'm only good because I'm athletic and I can run and I'm long.
Right.
But if I'm last week we played and this guy, he's a little chunky, he's not very fast, but man, he could hit the ball anywhere he wanted and he'd do this little spin. So you think it's gonna bounce here, but it would go the other way. Oh man, it was incredible.
Yeah.
And I was able to catch the balls, but because I'm not good at tennis, I would just hit it back over. Like I'm just like safely hit it back over.
Right.
And man, he was so good. But it was fun. It was a lot of fun. He had me running everywhere. He was just it was like ping pong to him. It was ridiculous. But pickleball's a lot of fun. It was fun.
Yeah.
I love soccer. I still play soccer. But yeah, any sport, I think any sport, when they're young, if you have kids, get them in a sport. It's important. If you're older, play a sport.
Yeah.
Even the social aspect.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. I was going to say, and the other thing I think that's really important and helpful, and I think has been really helpful for me is weightlifting.
Okay.
And I don't think, you know, it doesn't have to be like that bodybuilding.
Yeah.
But just doing some kind of weight training is actually, again, so important for our health.
Yeah.
And I think it's, again, just really helped me throughout the years.
Yeah. I heard, my brother-in-law actually told me that muscle protects bones.
Mm-hmm.
So I started lifting this year. Because I would do a lot of cardio. Because I'm thinking, well, you know, I want to be able to last on the soccer field, running, right? Now I'm like, I think it's important to build muscle.
Yeah, it is. It helps with your cardio. And honestly, muscle burns more calories. Like even when you're just sitting, the more muscle mass you have, it burns more calories as well. And so, that muscle is really important. Again, you don't have to lift anything crazy, but yeah, just incorporating some kind of weight training is really good.
Yeah, I saw a guy that was so strong he couldn't even straighten his arms. So you don't want to get that.
Right.
Yeah, I think everything has its extremes, right?
Yes.
Like you don't want to get too crazy bodybuilding unless you're a bodybuilder, but you also want to have muscle. It's important. Yeah, we tell my dad walks and works out. We're trying to get my mom. She walks, but she doesn't lift weights. There's a guy, knees over toe guy. Have you heard of him?
No.
Really cool stuff that he's looking into just on restoring your knee without surgery. He was able to rebuild his knees or strengthen his knees without surgery.
Oh, nice.
So he does a lot of, and he calls it knees over toes because he squats and his knees go over his toes. But he's able to do that now because he can strengthen his knees. So I showed that to my mom because my mom's in her late 60s. And I'm like, they say falling is dangerous for older people.
Oh, absolutely.
And so he has a bunch of exercises that will kind of prevent them from falling, right? One of those is walking backwards.
Yeah.
For some reason, he says walking backwards, you use the same muscles of when you go downstairs or you go down a step, you're building those same muscles. Okay. And so he does a lot of walking backwards. So I tell my mom, you need to walk backwards.
Yeah.
If you're not going to lift weights.
Right.
Yeah. Very cool. Okay, so physical fitness is important if you want to get into the Navy. What else did you mention?
Just making sure that you are doing your best in school that you can. Being involved in the community as well.
Okay.
You know, showing showing your leadership potential.
Yeah.
In whatever activities you may be involved in.
Yeah.
That's also really good. Whenever you, again, this is for the officer side, but and not everything requires an application.
Yeah.
Or I don't want to say application, but I know like for the program, the nurse candidate program that I applied for, you have to write a motivational statement.
Oh, okay.
And same type of thing if you are, once you're in the Navy, like I said, I applied to DOINS. Like you have to write your own motivational statement. So really just taking that time to really know why you want to do what you want to do. And really working on your writing skills as well.
Yeah.
Being able to articulate yourself.
Yeah.
And when your essays is important as well.
Oh, okay. So communication skills, writing, speaking.
Absolutely. Because you also do have to do interviews for these programs as well. Not all of them, but for certain ones. And so, being able to interview well is important.
Cool. And so with a nursing degree, you mentioned a nursing degree, and you mentioned being a junior. Is that different from, aren't there like nursing program, like 2-year nursing program?
Yes, there are. You can become an LVN or an LPN, which is a licensed vocational nurse or a licensed practical nurse.
Okay.
That's less schooling as well. But it's kind of like the level below a registered nurse.
Oh, okay.
To be a registered nurse, you do have to have either an associate's degree in nursing or a bachelor's degree in nursing. And so you can do a 2-year degree, associate's degree, and become a registered nurse. And then, of course, you've got your advanced degrees. You can get your master's in nursing in various fields, your doctorate in nursing. So there's all different levels.
What do those nurses do? Like the master's and the doctorate level nurses?
So
other than leadership.
Right. Of course, there is the leadership. But there's also nurse practitioner, what we call advanced practice nurses.
Okay.
So nurse practitioner, nurse midwife, nurse anesthetist, clinical nurse specialist, CNSs. Those are all at least a master's degree. They're actually kind of moving more towards a doctorate degree now. So all of those are going to be more your advanced degrees. And then again, like we said, you've got the leadership, executive leadership, that type of nursing. If you want to teach nursing, you don't have, again, depending on what level you're teaching, it can depend on what degree you have, but certainly if you want to go up into those higher levels, having your doctorate, master's to doctorate.
Cool. Very cool. So you have your master's.
Yes, I have
my master's. Are you
master's.
ever going to get doctorate?
I don't really have any desire for a doctorate, but I'm not going to say never, because it seems to be whenever I say I'm not ever doing that, I end up doing it. So, but I am content with my master's degree right now.
Very cool. One thing you mentioned earlier that I have found in this channel. So you mentioned you were already in the Navy and you were like, and I'm still trying to figure out what I want to do. What was I going to ask you? Oh yeah. What would you say to, that's kind of been a theme in people that I've been interviewing, is that what they do now isn't what they've always wanted to do, and or they're still kind of pivoting and or trying to get up the chain. What would you say to someone that kind of doesn't see themselves as a leader, right? But they want to be in the Navy, right? But like you mentioned, Navy like develops leaders, right?
Right.
And then nursing, there's opportunities to advance. Like, what would you say to someone that starting off is like, I just want to do this, right? Like, what are the pros of like where you are now? Like, I don't know if that question makes sense. Like someone, like the pros of advancing.
Right. So I mean, this probably will sound very I can't think of the word I'm trying to think of. But honestly, money. I mean,
okay. Yeah.
That's a big pro because the more you advance, the more money you typically make, which is nice. And we all like to make money. And so, certainly, I think too, I never really necessarily saw myself as being a leader. I don't think that was I don't know that I didn't see myself. I just think it was not something that I was really thinking about.
Yeah, you just didn't.
I'm like, oh, I'm going to be a nurse and I'm going to join the Navy. And but as you get into those professions and as you get older and mature and see what others are doing, I think it ignites something within you to be like, oh, I want to do that, or oh, I can do that. First starting out, I never really thought that I would be overseeing 350 people, which is about the number of staff I have underneath me now. Never would have even thought of myself there, but just as I've progressed in my career, like it just kind of takes that natural progression. You start out, and it's not like you go from nothing to all of a sudden now you've got to lead all these people. But there's a progression. And so, I think within nursing, there's certainly that opportunity. If all you ever wanted to do was just go to work, do patient care, and come home, you could certainly do that. But just maintaining, making sure you maintain realistic expectations that you're probably not going to advance and get promoted and that way. Now within the Navy, you don't really have that opportunity to just go do your job and that's it. If you want to make rank and advance, then you've got to push yourself. You've got to take on those extra roles and responsibilities.
No, that's good. I think that's good advice. I think money. So one thing that I tell people is money touches everything, right? Like you can't do anything without money.
Right.
And so I think it's, I don't know if the word you're looking for was shallow.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
I don't think it is at all, right? I think it's important to understand the financial aspects of any career, right? Because if you like serving people, there's a difference between, working for a company that pays you a lot versus a company that pays you. You're doing the same thing.
Right.
But as you create more value, you're going to be compensated for that. Right. As you become more of an expert, as you become more influential, however you want to say it.
Right.
I think it is important to compensate those people, and it's important to consider that as that's one of the reasons I left teaching was because of that money, right? Like with teaching, there's a pay scale. Like I'm on a pay scale, right? My first year teaching, this is what I make, and then my second year teaching, there's whether I'm the worst teacher or the best teacher, like if me and you have been teaching for 10 years, we work at the same district, whatever, like we get paid the same.
Right.
If you clock in 7:00, leave at 3:30, I get there at 6 and I don't leave till 5. Like we're getting paid the same.
Right.
So I had an opportunity to do something else that made more money. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to do it for my family. I'm going to go do this. Even though I love teaching. Right. I still feel like I'm teaching people. It's just now it's real estate instead of in the classroom. But money, I think it's important. I don't think anyone's watching this channel saying, oh, what do I want to do for free?
Right. Exactly.
No one's thinking that.
Yeah.
And so, is there any other advice or any closing thoughts you want to share with any potential nurses or Navy people out there?
Honestly, just both nursing and the Navy, they have been great careers for me. I've had lots of opportunities, and I think the great thing about both of them as well is that you don't have to get stuck in one thing.
Yeah.
Certainly within nursing, if you find a field you like and that's what you want to do, then absolutely you can stay in that field. But if you're like, you know what, I've done this for a little while, I want to try something else. There's so many opportunities within nursing that you can just go branch out and try all kinds of things.
That's great.
Yeah. And same with the Navy. It's a little bit more, if you have a field you like and you really want to stay in that field, the Navy's probably not for you because we move around so much, and you have to end up doing different jobs, different duty stations.
Yeah.
But it definitely gives you the opportunity to try different things and kind of figure out what you like and just do all kinds of different things.
Yeah. Very cool. Awesome. Well, I appreciate you coming. I appreciate you sharing. I'm sure people are going to get a lot out of this episode. It was a very interesting talk. You're the first person I've interviewed that has moved around, has kind of, you started here and now you're here, right? And most of the people that I've interviewed, it's like, well, other than the firefighter, now he's a lieutenant, but he just went up from firefighter to lieutenant.
Right.
Everyone else is like, I started doing this and I still do this, and I live in the same city, I work at the same place, right? And so it's interesting. Thank you for coming.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. And thank you guys for tuning in to My Line of Work. If today's story inspired or intrigued you, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell icon so you never miss an episode. If you have a career you're curious about, drop it in the comments. We'd love to feature it. Hasta la próxima.